Welcome back to Spooky Scary Storytime. I'm Ashley, your host, and today we are diving into some stories from on the job. And these stories go beyond just bad bosses or bad coworkers. We'll hear from an ecologist who claims that his boss was not human. We hear from a University of Alaska student who says that the Northern Lights aren't just beautiful, they're a portal. And we also hear from a maintenance worker at Denver International Airport who says that the same strange men in black would appear in terminals in early hours of the morning, and there's also elevators that just shouldn't exist. If you're new here, Spooky Scary Storytime is a series of allegedly true stories from you guys. And so if you want to submit a story, my website is dogoodstaybad.com. I love reading all of your emails, and we talk about everything here. It's not just the supernatural or the unexplained. It's anything from crazy dates, bad roommates, to haunted hotels, and everything in between. Speaking of hauntings, I'm here with my Annabelle doll, if you're watching instead of listening, and she's actually a popcorn bucket. But last week, Warner Bros. Actually invited me to an early screening, my first ever early screening of The Conjuring Last Rites, which is the final Conjuring movie in the franchise. It's coming out in theaters September 5th, which is tomorrow at the time of this recording, and it was a really good movie. I think you guys should go check it out. We're going to dig right into these stories. These were all originally published on short form platforms originally, and so because of the time constraints on those platforms, I do speak fast. You can change the playback speed if you prefer something a little bit slower. We're just going to rapid fire these stories and we'll get right into it. I hope y'all enjoy. And remember, if you have a story or if you just want advice about something unexplainable that's happening in your life, send it to me. I would love to tell it because the community here is really great and they love to give advice. They love to help other people. It's a really, really supportive community. I would argue the best community on the internet. I think you guys are awesome. Thank you all for being here. Let's get into it. This first story came from a man who claimed that his boss was not entirely human.
The story time I'm about to share with you is in the top 3 most unsettling emails I've received since starting Spooky Scary Storytime. It came from an ecologist who claims that his superior, his boss, was not of the human race. You can skip to this part if you want to start the story right now, but I feel like there's a few disclaimers that I have to get off my chest before I start this story. First off, I'm only going to tell you what he said in the email. I'm not going to inject my own opinion because we listen, we don't judge. Second of all, he does not follow me, but his daughter is a fan of Spooky Scary Storytime, which is how he found me and why he submitted his story. Apparently, she's been following very closely the Diorb bags videos, and she thought that this was relevant somehow to what's going on. The Diorb bags is a whole nother rabbit hole, so go down that if you haven't. But third, this man sent me this email from his real name. He asked me to please keep him anonymous because his career is on the line, which is why he's never told this story publicly. He said he's very well respected in an academic and professional sense. Finally, before I start the story, I'm going to censor certain words because media in general does censor a little bit certain things. So you're going to have to fill in some blanks, but I will try to make them as clear and concise as possible. This man said I could refer to him as Dr. Corbin. He's been an ecologist for the last 20 years. He's extremely well respected. He has published papers. He has contributed to scientific journals. He's a big deal. Sometime in the last 20 years, he was doing a research expedition at Yasuni National Park in Ecuador. It is part of the Amazon rainforest, and he said it's extremely unique in that it's one of the most biodiverse places on Earth, and it has extremely unique climatic conditions. To put it simply, he was there to study biodiversity. He said these research expeditions usually last anywhere from a few weeks to a few months, but this specific expedition was 8 weeks, and he was there with a few people that he knew, but it was a relatively large team. One of the guys he's there with, he went to school with to get his PhD, and he knew him relatively well. He said that this man had never said anything about like fringe theories, like he was very scientific minded. He said his entire team was working under the supervision and hand of somebody named Dr. Vola, not her real name. He had never met Dr. Vola, but she communicated with them pretty much just through email, and a few of his bosses that were on site knew her. His friend who he went to school with had also met Dr. Vola on a previous project. So after 2 weeks, when the team was there, Dr. Vola was coming out to the station where they were all staying. And the night before she gets there, Dr. Corbin is asking Dr. Joe, like what's she like, like what's she like working with? And Dr. Joe just says point blank to him, she's a lizard. Not what he said, but you know what I'm saying. He said there was no sense of like sarcasm, of like joking in his voice. So Dr. Corbin's like, what do you mean she's a lizard? And Dr. Joe is like, yeah, like you'll see when you meet her. Like everyone knows, everyone accepts it, but that's just what she is. Dr. Corbin obviously thinks he's joking and doesn't take him seriously because, again, he had known Dr. Joe since they were in school, and Dr. Joe had never exhibited any, like, conspiracy theorist tendencies. He had never said anything like that before, so he's like, obviously he's messing with me. Dr. Corbin said at this point in his email that he's experienced a lot of strange things that he can't explain in his work. He's experienced weird animal noises, weird animal behaviors, weird noises in the jungle, weird lights in the sky, but nothing could have prepared him for meeting Dr. Vola. She arrives the next day. He said the first thing he noticed about her was her complexion was one of the things that made her beautiful. He said it was like glass. Like, he didn't know the words then because this was before social media, but he said it was like she was wearing a filter in real life. But he wasn't trying to flirt with her. Obviously, she was his boss. He was actually intimidated by her because not only was she stunning, but she was incredibly smart, and she appeared to be a lot younger than him, even though he was relatively young when this happened. He said that was surprising to him because when she arrived on site, he expected some respected doctor that had been in the field for 20 or 30 years. When she gets there, she basically doesn't interact with anyone, but she gives people certain assignments. And he said the second thing he noticed was her movements. They were almost too smooth, like they were calculated, like she was trying to figure out a way to fit in naturally with other people she was around. The day after she arrives, her and the team venture out into the jungle. They're working on something, and he said he noticed that her skin was weird in the sunlight, like it was almost reflective. But then he thought it was just his mind playing tricks on him. It was so hot, and then he realized she wasn't sweating. So he started paying attention to it the next few days. She never had a bead of sweat anywhere on her. Every night the team ate together. She would always remove herself from the situation. She never ate with the team. She never had a snack. She claimed that she had certain allergy restrictions that prevented her from eating normal food. Not that weird, but what was weird to Dr. Corbin was that she always seemed to be near animals in their final moments. Dr. Corbin said he really didn't recognize it at first because in the rainforest, creatures succumb all the time to predation, illness, or just the elements of the rainforest. But after about a week, her proximity to their final moments became too obvious and too frequent to ignore. In one case, he said they were tracking a giant anteater for a few weeks. It was an elder male. It was scarred. It was majestic, and they had been monitoring its activity for a few weeks. One night, their GPS tracker on the giant anteater stopped tracking. It was later in the afternoon, but it was still light out, so Dr. Corbin and a few of his colleagues went out to find it. And they come to it, and they see Dr. Vola crouched over it. Her face is almost touching it, but when she saw them, she stood up and straightened herself. She muttered something about checking for signs of it being attacked by a predator, but the team took samples and they concluded that it had passed from natural causes. But what struck Dr. Corbin was Dr. Vola's behavior later that night. She seemed energized. She seemed like she was invigorated by something. He said when they returned to the base, her movements were sharper and quicker, like she had just had a surge of adrenaline. It wasn't just the anteater. After that, he noticed if something was dying, she was there. It was birds, frogs, small mammals, and every time she seemed to have a surge of energy afterward, like she fed off of it. He said obviously he has no way to prove it, but he felt like she was feeding off of something, their life force, their distress. He said over the next few weeks, Dr. Vola spoke very little, but when she did, she seemed to reveal information that she couldn't have possibly known. The results of experiments before they had concluded, the location of animals before they looked at the tracker. One evening, he decides he's going to joke with her. He's like, Dr. Vola, you are psychic, or you have a satellite feed in your brain. He said that her reaction stunned him. She stopped what she was doing, stared him dead in the eyes, unblinking, and said, Dr. Corbin, jokes are dangerous, and you don't want to ask questions with answers that you can't live with. He laughed nervously, but she just turned and walked away, and later that night she approached him when he was alone. She asked him if he knows how fragile humans are and how easily they can fall apart. Then she tells him that the jungle respects strength, not fragility, and honesty, not jokes. Dr. Corbin said his breaking point on this project came a few weeks later. He was watching the night trail cams and he spotted something odd in the trees. It was about human size, but it moved like a reptile. It had reflective eyes and it moved with a speed unbeknownst to him. He said at this point in his career he was very familiar with most of the species that lived in the rainforest and he had no idea what this was. The timestamp the video showed was during one of Dr. Vola's solo patrols. The next morning he confronts her and he tells her basically like, I think the light or the camera messed up because like, look at what I found. And she watches the footage and she looks at him and she says, delete it. And he was like, I don't know what it is. Like, look at the elongated neck. I think we should study this. Like, we should try to find whatever this is. And she leans in closer and she says, delete it. He tells her he would, but he didn't. And then later that day when he checked his laptop, the footage was gone. A few weeks later, the project concluded and he went home. He's back in the US now and he has not worked with Dr. Vola since, but he said he believes that some things walk among us that are not human, even if they appear to be. I'm genuinely curious your thoughts on this. Please let me know what you think, if you know what this was, if you believe that she really was a lizard, or if you think he's full of it. Dr. Corbin, thank you so much for sharing your story. I really enjoyed this story, even though it is unsettling to me, because I always am impressed or taken aback whenever I receive a story that's from someone who is from a walk of life that I would never experience. Everybody else keeps sending me your spooky, weird, things you think that no one would believe stories, and I will keep adding them to this playlist.
That story is wild, right? And this man did provide credentials, at least to me, to show that he was who he said he was. So I can't prove the validity of any of these stories. However, he did at least prove that he was, in fact, an ecologist. Moving right along, this is also a story about someone from a science background, and she talks about her experience researching the Northern Lights.
The story I'm about to share with you is one of the stranger and more unsettling stories I've gotten since starting Spooky Scary Storytime, and the reason is because it involves the Northern Lights and how they may be more than what they appear, which is a beautiful condition of nature, and how they in fact may be a portal, or at least believed to be a portal by a student of geophysics and atmospheric science. The person who sent this email wanted to be anonymous due to her involvement in the scientific field, because in the scientific community, it's not looked upon fondly to say anything too outside the box. But she did provide a list of resources where I could look her up, and she provided her CV, so she's legit. When she was a junior in college, she went to Alaska as part of a research team to study atmospheric conditions. This partnership often brings students out to study earth sciences and geophysics and atmospheric climate. For this project, her team was stationed in northern Alaska, about 20 miles from the gates of the Arctic National Park. This area of Alaska is extremely remote. There's no cell service, no roads. It's near the Brooks Range, and it's just miles and miles of frozen tundra. They were there to monitor magnetic field disturbances in relation to auroral activity. Sorry for all the cuts in this video. I have to keep referring to her email because I don't have a background in science. Basically, they were studying how the northern lights affect the Earth's atmosphere. She said up there, the northern lights come so close to the Earth's surface that they cast shadows, and she means that literally. So her team is up there for 3 days, and she's shadowing a grad student who she calls Maylin, not her real name. Maylin is at the top of her class. She's very skeptical and scientific-minded. She's basically just Maylin's intern. She does paperwork. She does all the stuff Maylin doesn't want to do. And Maylin is really conducting all the research and working on her own project. Maylin is not interested in getting to know her. She's keeping everything very professional. But on the third night they were there, things got very strange. She wakes up just after 3 a.m. and she notices Maylin is missing from the field camp. And so she starts looking for her, and she finds her standing on the ridge just west of the camp, staring straight up into the aurora. And she said her eyes were wide and unfocused, and it was freezing. So she goes up to her and she says, "What are you doing? Come back to camp." And she notices Maylin is clicking. This was a creepy part. She said the clicking sounded wet. It wasn't words. It was just a clicking that she was making with her mouth. It was in patterns. It was almost robotic. It was not like it was coming from a person, but she could see Maylin's mouth moving. Maylin snaps out of it and she starts talking to her, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And Maylin's like, "I was just looking at the lights." And she said, what noise were you making?" And Maylin says, "I wasn't making a noise." She's completely unaware that she was making this clicking sound, does not know what she's talking about. So they go back to camp and they go to bed. She said over the next 48 hours, 4 more members of their team exhibited this same behavior. Their personality shifted. They would be found in the middle of the night outside the camp making clicking sounds with their mouths. One of these people was their lead meteorologist on the project. They were supposed to be out there for a few weeks, but just 6 days after starting this project, they were pulled from the project. And they were pulled from the project given vague reasoning, which was equipment malfunction and possible atmospheric contamination. That was the official line, but she says she knows what she saw. And the night before evacuation, she saw the shadows touch the ground. And she says not in a figurative sense. They came down and they wrapped around a caribou that was standing by a tree line, and they lifted it a few feet off the ground. She said there was no struggle, there was no sound. She said when this happened, the caribou was completely still, and when it was placed back on the ground after a few seconds, it ran off. And she says nobody on her team will talk about it. Maylin's university profile was deleted the following semester, and she has no idea what happened to her. Their lead meteorologist is listed as on extended sabbatical. She said 2 of the others passed away under strange circumstances. One fell from the roof of a parking garage, and the other wandered into a frozen lake and drowned, and unaliving by himself. Earning her PhD, she says she hopes to research this more one day, but she believes that the northern lights are more than just electromagnetic. She believes they're ancient and that they're a veil for something else. She said once she gets the funding and the team and the backing to study this phenomena, she plans to do it. But for now, she can't stop thinking about it anytime she sees a photo of the northern lights, because she doesn't think we should just be admiring them. She thinks we need to be digging deeper into what they really are.
Our last story is from someone who claims to have worked as a maintenance worker at the Denver International Airport. And I could probably make an entire video about the Denver International Airport and all of the conspiracy theories around it. But this is just one man's account, so you make of it what you will.
This story was sent in by someone who says that they worked at the Denver International Airport in maintenance, did not give me a job title, did not want their real name used. And what they said they saw there, you're not going to like. We all know the lore about Lucifer and the creepy murals, but just because this story contains the content that it does, I'm just going to go ahead and say that I can't prove the validity of any of these stories. This is just what someone sent me, and this is for entertainment purposes only. I'm going to call this person M, and M started their email by saying that they probably shouldn't be sending this, but they think that I'm one of the only people, and this audience is some of the only people that are going to believe them, because other people have said that this is basically just increasing paranoia. So take from this what you will, but this person worked in operations/maintenance and had access and clearance for some areas that are not generally accessible to the public. These areas inaccessible to the public are really nothing to write home about. They're just sublevels, maintenance corridors, and airside logistics zones, really just the guts of the place. But this person said they were writing because something is happening down there, and something still might be happening down there. And there was a group of between 6 and 8 men wearing black suits and sunglasses that would show up around a specific gate between 3:30 and 3:40 in the morning. I'm not going to say the specific gate just in case that's sensitive information, but these people were not average business travelers. They had no name tags, no luggage, no chatter among them. They were dead silent. They looked and behaved very similarly but there were noticeable differences. It wasn't like they were clones of each other. They would just stand at this gate. And at first, this person thought it was military related or something related to security that they didn't have clearance to know about. But it was weird because nothing was coming or going from that gate at this hour in the morning. And they weren't there every night, but they were there a lot. And so this person started asking around about them, but nobody knew who they were. When they were there, security did not log them. And then when they tried to review files from this corridor, I'm not sure exactly what that means, those files were missing or corrupted. But then M says it got worse. These men never moved. They never spoke to each other. But if you made eye contact with them, you felt it. M said it was like they were looking through you, like they knew everything that you had ever done wrong. At one point, they passed these people, and one of the men removed his sunglasses, and M said that his eyes were completely black, not like his pupils, like all of his eyes were completely black. M said there are tunnels beneath the C terminal that are not on any blueprint, but M has witnessed them. And this is where the men would go. One night, M followed them from a distance, moved in unison, silently, like their feet were barely touching the floor. They went toward a service elevator in sublevel 5, which M said is supposed to be inactive, but M heard it move. M says as M got closer, they swear that they saw one of the men holding a black triangle that looked like it was made of liquid. They held it up to this door and the door opened. M goes back to their respective station and says that their badge had been deactivated by the time they got back. M says nobody could explain it. It had to be walked out by a supervisor who wouldn't look M in the eye. A few days later, they had it all resolved and they said it was a tech misread. After that, M was only ever scheduled on the A terminal side, never C. M said the last night they worked at the airport, there was a lockdown drill. It was supposed to be a test, but the tones were wrong, and they had only heard this tone frequency one other time, which was a night that all of the lights in Terminal C had gone out. During the time of the drill, M was in Terminal A working on a maintenance call. The radio went off from Terminal C, but there was nothing on the other end. It was just static. When they got back to the main terminal after the drill ended, they saw them, all the men in black suits standing inside the TSA line. No one stopped them, no one scanned them, and every single monitor on the displays behind them had glitched out to say a specific gate in Terminal C. M was called to their supervisor's office where they were let go for a security incident. Would not clarify. They ended their email by saying, I don't know if this qualifies for Spooky Scary Storytime, but I just wanted to put this information out there in case it helps anyone put any pieces together. They said, I just needed someone to know that it happened. So I don't really know too much about the Denver airport. Again, I know some of the lore, but if you can make any sense of this, let me know. And again, just to be safe, this story is for entertainment purposes only.
Once again, thank you guys so much for being here. If you want to join the 3 a.m. club, which is a Spooky Scary Storytime community, there is a Discord link in the description. You can click that and it'll give you instructions on how to join. It's a really great community. There's like 3,300 members and everyone's always up at odd hours talking about strange things. So if you have a story to share or you just want immediate feedback, go post your story there. Chat with the community. It's amazing. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you guys want more spooky, scary stories. And let me know what topics you want covered next because I've got stories. I've got stories.